Hey everybody, it's Emily, the Crazy Worm Lady. I'm here today with the carbon-only bins. I'm sure you guys thought I forgot about them, but I've been using them a little bit for some of my extra breeder worms, and so I've added a bunch of worms to this bin, and I'm thinking I want to harvest it, or start to harvest it, because a lot of the compost in here is completely finished. So this is the European nightcrawler carbon-only bin, and I wanted to peek through here, see how they were doing and get them fed up, but on one side, like I've been trying to do the horizontal migration method. So I'm gonna get this little piece of landscape fabric out of here. I'm gonna grab a few of these plastic window pieces. They won't compost, and it's funny, the worms push them right up to the top. I'll pull them off and then we'll take a peek. Okay, so if you guys are new to my channel, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to follow along my experiments a little bit more. But this is the compost that these European nightcrawlers have made for me. And there's still small amounts of unprocessed bedding, but I figure with harvesting, they'll probably work through most of it. And any large pieces of unprocessed bedding like this, I can just push down with our harvest area. But you can see these Euros are quite healthy. I finally broke down and bought a new bag of a box of gloves, my other ones I've been using for over and over for quite some time. So I hope the color is okay. Just looked kind of fun. But really everything in here, you can see a cocoon right there, is processed. It's flaky, it's a great consistency. I see very little pests in here, which is excellent. Seems like it has a pretty healthy ecosystem. So I'm going to turn this up quite a bit. Look at that guy over there. Just to get all the way to the bottom to get out any compact material. But this consistency all the way to the bottom is ultra flaky, and that's really what you want in your finished compost. You don't want it to be overly muddy. I mean, not that it doesn't work, but if it's too muddy, it could be a little anaerobic, and it just makes it more difficult to harvest and get worms to move out of it. So I really try my best to keep my systems right at about this consistency. It looks quite dry, but there's just enough moisture while making sure it's not overly moist. And that's kind of a skill you pick up over time on how to manage it. And the longer you run a worm bin, you figure out how much you can get away with and how much carbon you need to nitrogen. Since I'm not doing any nitrogen, so no food sources in this bin, I've had to actually add water to it. But you just monitor it. There is a cocoon. That's a more freshly laid cocoon right there. It's like that yellowish green color, and they get nice and dark before they hatch. So I'm going to turn everything up and then push everything up to this side, and we'll start putting all of our bedding sources over here and see if we can get these guys to migrate. This, I think, will be a completely different thing than any of my other migrations because there's not a lot of food to entice them. So I want to see if bedding alone can entice the worms to migrate down to this right-hand side. Okay, guys, so I actually got a brand new shredder. I broke down and bought the Amazon Basics 24 sheet shredder. And so I'm going to add a whole bunch of this shredded cardboard that I just shred up with this thing. It's absolutely amazing. It is so quiet, and it doesn't make that grinding noise like it could burn up on me at any minute. So I'm liking it so far. And I'm just going to put, I don't know, about 5-6 inches in the bottom here. There's a few worms climbing up the sides. European nightcrawlers and African nightcrawlers tend to get easily disturbed by you messing around in their bin. But I want to get them settled in before I leave for vacation. This video might not be posted before I leave, but I'm actually leaving later today. It's the middle of the night right now. As you guys know, I'm a night shift worker. So this is a bunch of my dry mix. Even though it's only bedding, the worms still need a grit source to break down the food in their gizzard. So we need to provide that, and it also has a little bit of neem cake. All the ingredients are below, but will help them process the food a little quicker. And yes, I should be spritzing this, not pouring it in. But since the bedding is very flaky, I feel pretty confident that if I mix this in right now, this side will be a really good consistency and it'll stay moist enough that they can move in. And I am allowing some of these castings to get mixed in here as well because that will encourage the worms. And I also moved over the pieces of newspaper that they had not yet processed as well to have this as the only real area that has anything unprocessed. There's very little left on that left-hand side, and I'm hoping that they will be enticed over here. And I'll put a little bit more on top because it is still pretty moist, but I do leave the lid off of this, so it's kind of difficult when you leave lids off for it to get overly moist. You really have to try very hard to make it get overly moist, but I do want to make sure that they don't drown in the bottom. Right now there is a little standing liquid in the bottom, and you don't want that. But the amount of standing liquid is not too bad, and I'll check this again before I leave tomorrow, make sure that the moisture is perfect. And I will pull down just a little bit of this compost over the top, provide a little barrier, and also encourage the worms to move into an environment they're more familiar with all these microbes. And we're gonna leave it be. I'm gonna go grab the African night crawlers. We'll do it a little bit quicker, but we're gonna do the same thing with them. And we'll just follow it for a few weeks and see what happens. Okay guys, so again, I've been using this for some breeder worms. So it's very much composted. You'll actually notice it's probably a little bit more composted in here, at least darker, except for these large pieces, even than in the European bin. And I will say, I think they've been working over these castings a little bit too many times because it's a little cakier and moist than in the European nightcrawler bin. But the worms do look healthy. They are all throughout here. It's really incredible, really dark castings. This bin, I do notice some springtails, which I always think is interesting when I put almost the same inputs into my systems, and some have different pests than others. But these worms are looking good. Definitely these big pieces of bedding will be going down in the bottom where we're trying to harvest them. But I couldn't ask for better looking compost, and it still does flake pretty well. It's just maybe a hair more moist than in the European bin. So I'm gonna get this one turned up just like I did the other one. We'll add some carbon and start the carbon only harvest. I'm interested to see if they'll even go for it or if they'll stay kind of spread throughout. Big guys like to hang out in the bottom. Ooh. But there are worms of all sizes in here. I'm just trying to separate out the bedding pieces for down here and push the castings up to the left. All right, so I left those pieces of bedding down there on the right-hand side. I'm going to do a few more handfuls of my shredded cardboard. I probably won't add quite as much since they do already have some bedding in here. But I'm thinking the night crawlers tend to really love the carbon sources. So since those castings are really well worked over, that having some fresh, bedding for them, they'll be quite enticed to work down into something new. So same deal over here, just a little bit of my dry mix. Give them that grit, some of those trace minerals, kind of prevent it from being too boring since they don't really have any food in here. I'm gonna moisten it down, top it with some castings, and that'll be it. So let me know what you think, guys. Drop your comments below. Like this video, subscribe for some more content from me, and I look forward to coming back with you guys real soon for an update. This will probably be a bi-weekly update as this harvest process continues, but I think the worms are gonna be happy and it'll be really, really interesting to follow. So I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope you have a great day. It's a package I just got off my porch. I think I know now where my beetles may be coming from.